Dads, what's the most desperate thing your kid has done to earn your trust back? I caught my son Levi with his hand literally inside my wallet at 2 in the morning. When I asked him what the hell he was doing, he looked up at me with panic in his eyes like a deer in headlights and said he needed the money and would pay me back, and please could I just trust him this once. I grabbed the money out of his hand and demanded to know what he needed $60 for at 2 in the morning, but he wouldn't look at me and just kept saying someone was counting on him and he couldn't explain, but it wasn't anything bad. I slammed my hand on the table and grounded him for 2 weeks with no phone, no car, and no leaving the house except for school. His face went white and he started begging me to reconsider. Dad, please, I have to be able to leave. I pointed toward the stairs and told him he should have thought about that before he tried to steal from me. The next morning, every dish in the house was clean and put away. The lawn was mowed. The gutters were cleaned. I found Levi in the garage organizing my tools, sweat pouring down his face even though it was 7 in the morning. He didn't stop when he saw me watching. For 3 days, he kept at it, doing every chore he could find without being asked. Neighbors started stopping me in the driveway, asking if I was paying him because he'd been doing yard work for half the block. On day 4, he walked up to me holding an envelope with the $60 plus 40 more from working. He apologized and asked if he could please have the car back because he really needed to drive. I stared at the envelope in my hand and asked him what was so important that he stole from me and then worked himself half to death. He swallowed hard and said he couldn't explain, but he needed me to trust him that it wasn't drugs or anything bad. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong, but I handed him the keys. That night after he fell asleep, I went out to his car and stuck a tracker under the passenger seat. For the next week, I watched that tracker like my life depended on it. He had told me he had after-school activities to attend, but his location told me a different story. Tuesday afternoon, hospital. Wednesday, hospital. Friday, hospital. My hands started shaking. He was lying about where he was going, and I had no idea why. By the following Tuesday, I couldn't take it anymore. I left work early and drove there myself, searching the parking lot until I spotted his car. I parked 3 spaces away and waited, my heart trying to punch through my chest. When Levi finally came out, I jumped out and blocked his path. He froze when he saw me. I grabbed his shoulders and demanded to know what was wrong with him and why he'd been coming to the hospital 3 times a week. I asked if he was sick, if he had cancer, begged him to just tell me the truth. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. A voice behind me asked if I was his father. I spun around. An elderly man with a walker was making his way slowly toward us, his hands shaking on the handles. He stopped a few feet away to catch his breath and explained that my son had been driving him to chemotherapy 3 times a week for 6 weeks. My mouth went dry. The old man's eyes were watering as he told me his daughter died last year and she was supposed to take him to his treatments. He said my boy looked just like his grandson, who he hadn't seen since the funeral because his father wouldn't let him visit anymore. His voice cracked. When Levi knocked on my door 6 weeks ago offering to mow my lawn, I broke down crying. For just 1 second, I thought my grandson had come back to me. I stood there frozen, unable to move or speak. Levi's voice was quiet but steady as he explained that I always told him Grandpa was my best friend and I'd give anything for 1 more day with him. He pointed at our neighbor and said he reminded him of Grandpa and was dying alone and he couldn't just do nothing. He looked down at his shoes and told me the neighbor needed money for his copay that week, and he panicked because he knew I'd ask questions and maybe say no, so he just took it. Then he looked me straight in the eyes. I'm sorry I stole from you, Dad, but I wasn't going to let him die alone in some waiting room because nobody cared enough to drive him. I pulled him into a hug right there in the parking lot and held on tight. I told him I was so proud of him and sorry I didn't trust him. Then I walked over and shook our neighbor's hand and told him I'd be driving him to every appointment from now on, and both of us would be there for him.